Okay, class, today we're going to be learning about the water cycle, and it's going to be myself, Ms. Coronado, Ms. Rodriguez, Ms. Guerrera, Ms. Guevara, and Ms. Garcia that are also going to be teaching you guys about the water cycle. So I want to start off and ask, what did y'all do over the weekend? Do you have any news for me?
Like what kind of news?
Like, did anything exciting happen to you this weekend?
I got a puppy.
Oh, a puppy. Nice. I also wanted to point out, did anyone notice the weather today?
It was a little rainy.
Rainy. Mm-hmm. It was, right? Did anyone get any wet on their feet or?
Yes, my socks are wet.
Okay, does anyone know where that comes from? Did you ever wonder where that came from?
The sky?
All right. Well, today we're going to learn all about that. Okay, so today the TEKs are Earth and space. The student knows that there are recognizable patterns in the natural world and among objects in the sky. The student is expected to explore the process in the water cycle, including evaporation, condensation, and precipitation as connected to weather conditions. And the objectives for today is the language objective. The student will be able to describe the components of the water cycle by using specific vocabulary words and providing an example. And the content objective, the student will be able to show the different components of the water cycle by completing a graphic organizer.
Okay, class, so before we get started and we start talking about the water cycle and about all the vocabulary words we're going to learn today, we're going to do a do now. So for about 5 minutes, I want you to turn to your partner, turn to each other, and I want you to talk about what you think the water cycle is, okay? From everything that you already know, I want you to get together with the person next to you and talk to each other, okay? Give each other ideas about what you think it is. I want you to ask each other questions or answer questions like, where would you see this? So would you see this in a lake or would you see this in a forest? Things like that. And what an example of this is. So if you think maybe a water faucet or rain or a river, so think of things like that and then we can share together after you talk to your partner, okay? So let's do that for a few minutes. I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. Okay, class, so now that you've had a chance to talk with your partner, we're going to talk to each other and we're going to share our ideas and what we discussed. So the earth has a limited amount of water. I know that a lot of times we see pictures and it seems like water's all over the earth, but just because there's so much water doesn't mean that it won't eventually run out, right? So the water constantly cycles around and around the earth, which is why it's called the water cycle. So a cycle, what do you think of when you think of a cycle? Does that remind you of maybe like a circle, right? So let's all do this so we can remember a cycle, a water cycle, right?
Cycle.
The cycle is broken up into 3 parts. Let me see those fingers so I know that you guys are paying attention. 3 parts, right? Good job, everybody. The first part of the cycle is evaporation. The second part is condensation. And the third part is precipitation. So now that we've kind of like introduced all of these vocabulary words and we talked with our partners and we got to share, I want to show you guys a video and I want you to remember these vocabulary words because they're going to come out in the video and I want you to kind of make the connection with the water cycle vocabulary words in the video, okay? So let's all make sure our eyes are on here on the screen and we're going to watch the video.
Hello, friends. I am Drippy. You know that rain makes the grass green and it makes your garden grow. Have you ever wondered what makes rain, though? Let's learn. How does rain form?
First, we will need the sun. So, here is the sun. When the sun shines, the heat of the sun warms the water, turning it into an invisible gas called water vapor. This process, the changing of water into a gas, is called evaporation.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia, for that introduction. Now, what did we just learn from this video? Did you notice any vocabulary words that you saw in the previous slide that Ms. Garcia showed you?
Yes.
What word did you recognize?
Evaporation.
Good job. Let's continue watching the video and see what other words we can find.
Because gas is lighter than liquids, water vapor rises up into the sky, and they further move up into the way from Earth's surface due to the temperature of gas. So, in the sky, the water vapor cools and changes back into tiny water droplets. This change of water vapor into water droplets is called condensation.
Okay, did we notice another vocabulary word that we saw in the previous slide?
Yes.
What word did you notice?
Condensation.
Condensation. Do you remember what it means? Were you listening?
Yes, it's the water. It changes and then it goes up on top.
Good
And then
job.
it falls down like
Oh.
rain.
Okay, let's continue watching and see what else we find.
And it's the opposite of evaporation. Clouds are made up of tiny water droplets, so when condensation occurs in the sky, clouds form and grow. Let's see it from a closer perspective. The droplets bang together and form even bigger drops. When the drops get heavy, they fall because of gravity. They even grow and bump into one another on their journey from the cloud to the ground, and every single raindrop that reaches the ground is made of 1 million of the original tiny water droplets. Raindrops fall on the ground's surface when the sun can shine on them, and the whole process happens again. This whole process is called a water cycle and keeps the water moving from the ground to the sky, fulfilling the water needs of the plants, animals, and people to survive.
So, now you know how do raindrops form and fall. Let's summarize this. Steps of water cycle. Evaporation. The changing of water into a gas is called evaporation. Condensation. The changing of water vapor into water droplets is called condensation. Precipitation. Water falls from the sky in the form of rain, snow, or hail. This process is called precipitation.
Okay, class, so let's review some of the steps that we saw in the video of the water cycle. So the first one was condensation. So it's water vapor in the air. It gets cold and changes back into liquid, forming clouds. So as you can see in the water bottle, there's little water droplets that are in there. The next one is evaporation. So evaporation is when the sun heats up water in the river or lakes or the ocean and turns it into vapor or steam. The water vapor or steam leaves the river, lake, or ocean and goes into the air. So as you can see, this is like a pot of boiling water, and it's evaporating into the air. So the water that's in here is turning into steam. The next one is precipitation. So water vapor in the air gets cold and changes back into liquid form, forming clouds. Clouds get heavy and fall from the clouds as rain, sleet, snow, or hail. So precipitation doesn't just have to be rain. It can be hail, it can be sleet, or it can be snow. So it's drops of fresh water that falls as precipitation from clouds. Snow, it's soft white flakes of ice that fall from the sky to the earth. Sleet is a form of precipitation consisting of ice pellets, often mixed with rain or snow. And hail is small lumps of ice and snow that fall from the clouds, sometimes during thunderstorms.
Okay, class, now since we've learned so much knowledge today from the video and from reviewing the vocabulary, we're going to do an activity so you can show me what you've learned. Here I have an example of what your finished product will be. So you're going to come up to the front of the classroom, and I have these papers folded for you, just like they are up here on the picture. And we're going to draw the water cycle and the steps. And on the inside, we're going to write our definitions of the vocabulary words that we have learned so far. So here is an example of how you will be writing your graphic organizer. You're going to title it the water cycle. And on the other four, you will write the definition, you will write your vocabulary word on the outside of the flap. And on the inside of the flap, you will write your definition. And remember, I have these all folded up for you right here in the front. So all you have to do is come pick up one for each student. Remember, each one of you just gets one. And you will go back and complete your activity.
Okay, thank you class for doing a good job on your water cycle graphic organizer. They look really good. And before we go today, we're going to review what we learned. So we're going to answer a couple of questions. So can someone tell me how many steps are in the water cycle?
There's 3.
Good job. Correct. There are 3 steps in the water cycle. Can somebody tell me what the steps are? Yeah, go ahead.
Evaporation, condensation, and precipitation.
Great job. You're right. The 3 steps that we learned today are evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. Next, I want you guys to tell me what happens in those steps. Good job, Billy. That's correct. So before the bell rings, I want you guys to line up at the door in your line order, and once you walk out the door, you're going to tell me one definition of one step of the water cycle. Thank you guys. I'll see you at the door.